Hi, welcome back to the third video on cost of production for the Western Beef Development Center. In this video, we're going to provide an introduction to the cost of production calculator available through Western Beef's website. And then I'm going to go through just a basic outline of the calculator and its folders before we move into entering data from an example ranch called ABC Ranch. So first things first, you want to navigate to our Western Beef website. So www.wbdc.sk.ca will take you to our home page, and there's a couple of ways that you can find the tool. It is featured on our latest news under cost of production calculator. However, these items do change, so you're going to just probably go through the buttons on the left-hand side of the screen. There's the third one down called Economics, and click on Current Projects. You'll find a bunch of information on economic analysis and cost of production on this page, and you can learn about why it's important to calculate your cost of production, the type of information that's needed, which was featured in the second video on cost of production. And if you continue to scroll down, you'll find historical results from Western Beef's annual cost of production study. And if you keep scrolling down, you're going to find this fancy little green and white icon that says XLSX, which means Excel. It's a spreadsheet tool through the Microsoft Office complement of programs. If you do not have Excel installed on your home computer, you will not be able to use this cost of production calculator. So first off, the way to download it is just simply clicking on the icon and hitting open on the window that will likely pop up on your computer. This shall open up on my computer here. You'll see at the top that it says read only, and so what you need to do is, because it's just freshly downloaded from the internet, you'll have to save it on your own computer. So I can go home, save as, and just save it to my desktop as cost of production Excel calculator. And there, it's saved onto my desktop, and you see that read only has disappeared. So I'll just spend some time navigating through the various tabs. If you are familiar with Excel, this will be fairly straightforward. So you'll have a welcome screen that the tool will open up to, and it gives you a little bit of background explaining that this tool was developed by the Western Beef, by myself, Kathy Larson, to help producers calculate their cost of production at home. Prior to this, we had gone through data forms or farm visits to collect data, but we're starting to move away from that and just providing a tool that ranchers can use at home at their own speed and own pace. There's a number of tabs in this worksheet. Explaining that you'll need to start at the About My Ranch tab and then progress right through the tabs from 1 through 12. And gives a little bit of background on some things to consider when entering data. And we'll get into that in subsequent videos after this one to explain how to enter data using ABC Ranch and Example Ranch. So we'll just go to the first tab, About My Ranch. So I just have to put my mouse on it and click on it. And you'll see that each of the tabs, how I've set it up, is that there's steps that you'll just continue to scroll down and enter the steps 1 through 3 on this worksheet, and so on and so forth for each of the tabs. So first off, you're going to need to identify enterprises, and you would place an X beside each of the enterprises that you have on your operation. And we've explained what enterprises are in previous videos. Generally, most of the producers that will be using this tool will have a cow-calf enterprise, and you're likely going to have some of these subsequent enterprises below. You're going to indicate which year the analysis is for, so that's generally for the calf crop that you're dealing with, and they can put information on your accounting year as well. It's not always January 1st to December 31st for people. Then there's the cow-calf enterprise tab, and this is where you enter most of the production information related to the cow-calf enterprise. This has more steps than the first tab we just looked at. As you can see, continue to scroll down and see a number of steps all the way through 8, and when you reach the bottom it says you've now entered all the production details for the cow-calf enterprise. You'll see when I go to the replacement heifer enterprise, there's a red statement at the top saying you did not indicate in the About My Ranch tab that you have a replacement heifer enterprise. This is just to alert you that if you indeed have a replacement heifer enterprise, you need to first indicate so in this tab. So if we place an X here and then return to the replacement input form, it'll say the required data for the replacements enterprise will be entered in this tab. You can see that the wording is changed now that an X has been placed in this About My Ranch tab. So under the replacement heifers, you have to put in information about inventories, wean dates, pasture turnout dates, purchases and sales of heifers, winter feed for them, so that was shortly after they were weaned off their mums, grazing information, then it says you've now entered all the details for the replacement heifer enterprise, and you can keep progressing right through all the tabs. Again, if you have ranch raised bulls, you would fill in the information in this worksheet. If you have backgrounders, here's the spreadsheet for their production information. Similarly with grassers, if you feedlot finish animals, you would put it here. Pasture enterprise, in this form, there's only a couple steps in that. Forage enterprise, you list your forage types and your information, and we'll get into that in detail in subsequent videos. Grain enterprise, if you have grain crops and you want to include them in your economic analysis, you can definitely enter that information here. Other revenues, this is just a basic tab. Sometimes people want to report their revenues from sources that don't really pertain to any of these enterprises, and you would put that information here. Here is a very long set of tables for reporting expense information, and we'll get into that in detail when we look at the ABC Ranch example. So there's going to be livestock type expenses and then shared expenses. And if you recall from the previous videos, shared expenses are those ones where you need to generally share the expense across all the enterprises on the ranch. And you'll see right now I only have X's for cow, calf, and replacement heifer, so that's why those are the only two options at this point. You can only allocate the fuel expense to either cow, calf, or replacement heifer. But as you add X's to the About My Ranch tab, say if I put an X right now beside backgrounder, forage, and pasture, and then return to the expenses tab, you'll see those enterprises showing up, and you can enter percentages. So say you want 25% to the cows, 10% to replacements, 10% to backgrounders, 10% to grazing, and I'd still need 45% for forage, or however you're going to add it up. You want it to equal to 100% here. So you're going to have to figure out a percentage split for each of your expenses, and we'll get into that in the subsequent videos. So you'll have a number of expense categories here to fill in. Unpaid labor, this is for your hard work, management and effort and knowledge and skills. You're going to come up with a wage rate for yourself and perhaps say your spouse or other laborers, maybe your son ranches with you, and you'll put a value for your unpaid labor. If you take a wage from the operation, you'll have it under the expenses tab and include it under the paid labor expense area. This is only if you do not draw a solid wage, say through if your ranch is incorporated and you're pulling a wage. Assets and depreciation, this is where you list your powered machinery, your non-powered machinery, and your buildings, storage, fence, and livestock equipment, and you'll see the different rates. 5% on building and livestock equipment, 11.5% on non-powered machinery, and 8% on powered machinery. Then we'll move into summary reports. Once you've entered in all your production and financial information, these charts will self-populate based on the information you provided in the previous worksheets and the previous data entry that's happened. You'll have information on your production indicators, which are really important measures of how your your herd is in sort of its efficiencies and producing calves for you year after year. Then there's a series of tabs with all the cost of production summary sheets. So for each enterprise that you have, these will populate once all the production financial information is inputted, and you'll see information on your income, your direct costs, your yardage overhead costs. And this, if you have taken a look at any of Western Beef's cost of production benchmark reports, this is the exact same layout as those reports. Replacement heifers, there'll be a cost of production summary for each of the enterprises on your operation. Then there's two last reports, winners and losers, is sort of an overview of all the enterprises just put in one place and explaining sort of the key revenue and expense items for each enterprise, and then your unit cost of production. Remember, we talked about unit cost of production for cow-calf is dollars per pound of calf wean, because that's your primary unit of sale for that enterprise, and so you'll have that information all in one place. And this report basically tells you which of your enterprise is making you money and which ones are maybe taking from the ranch, and so that's your winners and your losers for your ranch. And then a whole farm report, just another overarching summary of all the details for your operation. So these are all showing zeros right now because none of the data has been inputted in this Excel calculator, this cost of production calculator tool. So that's the end of this video, just kind of giving you an overview of how this calculator is laid out. It is an Excel tool. You will need to have Microsoft Office Excel installed on your home computer in order to be able to use this tool. So with that, I'm just going to end the video and we'll move on to the next one. Thank you for joining us.